Respectfully, Brittney Griner was in a Russian prison. You would think that somebody who is now free, back in America on home soil, would not have too much to complain about. Especially something like this.
I cannot believe I am saying this. I cannot believe I'm about to say something positive about the WNBA. If you have been following this channel for a while, hell, even if you just started watching the channel yesterday, you know exactly what Uncle KC thinks about the pretend basketball and the dump. I cannot stand the WNBA. I have zero sympathy for entitled players who constantly...
Brittney Griner just had a complete breakdown after Stephen A. Smith obliterated her for making racially charged remarks about Caitlin Clark. The former Russian prison detainee tried to pull the race card over crowd noise only for Stephen A. to hit back with a harsh dose of truth she clearly didn't expect. His clapback was so ruthless, Griner completely lost control. So now the question is, what's more embarrassing? Getting roasted for her racially laced comments? Or having Stephen A. drag her back to the memory of a government rescue from a Russian jail? This might be the most public unraveling of her professional life, and, honestly, it's jaw-dropping. After dropping some wildly off-key takes about crowd behavior and racial energy in WNBA games, Stephen A. stepped in and did what he does best. He cooked. Griner spiraled so hard after his takedown, it looked like she was fighting a phantom. Opponent, her reaction. It deserves a highlight reel of its own. Let's break down what she said. Every time we play her, there's this loud rumble. She claimed. Griner then described fans as disruptive, like they were intentionally loud just to mess with her. She said WNBA games used to be calm where people could chill, maybe even crack open a laptop, but now, according to her, it's chaos. Crowds actually watching, fans cheering passionately.
Sick and tired of the WNBA. It used to be a peaceful, small little thing. Now there's crowds screaming, hollering. This is disruptive. It's not allowing us to play the game. This is her quote. I don't know if you saw this or not when she gave that. Okay, can you pull up that quote? Because I got to read to, I'm going to apply for.
Some even yelling in the stands. Then she drops the line. I saw a man with his daughter yelling. Couldn't tell exactly what they said, but it was either about my play or light racism. Yes, light racism. Here's why that matters. Because context is everything. During a recent sit-down, Griner took aim at the rowdy energy surrounding Caitlin Clark's presence in the league. She mentioned fans being overly vocal, then jumped to a bizarre conclusion that maybe, just maybe, they were being a little racist. That phrase, light racism, was all it took to spark a wildfire. She used it to describe fans getting excited over a basketball game. Think about that. A pro athlete interpreted normal fan hype as a racial attack. That's the kind of reach Stephen A.
That's how fans act in every arena. In every arena. So, and then when you, clearly she's not remembering who they let out to get her back.
The merchant of death.
The merchant of death. An arms dealer that wanted to kill American citizens, according to the reports.
He simply wasn't going to let slide. Now remember, Griner was once locked up in a Russian cell. She was brought home through a high-stakes prisoner swap. You'd think someone with that kind of perspective wouldn't be triggered by applause. But here she is, in America, trashing passionate fans like they're the problem. That's when Stephen A. stepped up. He reminded everyone that Griner's freedom came at a price the US literally traded Victor Bout, a convicted arms trafficker known as the Merchant of Death, to bring her home. A man convicted of conspiring to kill Americans. That's who we let go. And now she's complaining about noise? Stephen A.'s comparison hit like a freight train. Here's someone who faced real oppression, real danger, and actual limitations on her liberty. And yet now, she's ranting about fans being too into the game. The level of disconnect was off the charts. Even her usual defenders were left speechless. And instead of taking a second to self-reflect, Griner went scorched earth. She didn't just dismiss Stephen A.'s take, she attacked him personally, claimed he didn't get her experience, labeled his views ignorant, and
Brittney Griner is, in fact, a man. One of the videos that give us cause to say that is this video. It is from her Instagram stories from years and years ago. And when it comes to Instagram, they use a combination of like AI detection and plus manual surveyors to make sure that no explicit content ends up on the platform. So clearly whatever AI detection system was used when Brittney posted this and it stayed up for 106 weeks was not like, oh, this is a female chest, we have to take this down. Oftentimes, if breast cancer runs in a family, women will preemptively get like double mastectomies. And there's some great surgeons out there, don't get me wrong, but I don't see any scars on Brittney's chest that would be indicative of a double mastectomy or top surgery for gender transition. Brittney Griner
completely melted down online because someone dared to confront her narrative. Now, here's the twist. While she was ranting about fans being disruptive, something else was happening. Ticket prices dropped for Indiana Fever road games when Caitlin Clark was sidelined. According to Yahoo Sports and TickPick, prices dipped for 2 upcoming Fever games without Clark. That's the proof right there. Clark drives interest. And yet Griner's over here complaining about the very wave that's boosting the league. The irony. Griner hated the crowd noise, but created more noise with her own. Reaction? She became the biggest distraction of all, overshadowing the game, the players, and the moment. She turned into the very thing she claimed was ruining basketball. Stephen A's takedown wasn't just about the Russian prison. That was the headline, but his message ran deeper. He called out Griner's warped view of sports entertainment. Fans don't buy tickets to sit silent. They come to cheer, scream, vibe. That's what builds an atmosphere. But Griner treated that energy like it was toxic, like it was a threat instead of a gift.
Toxic. I saw a guy with his daughter in the crowd, both of them yelling, couldn't hear what they were saying exactly, but it was either my performance or some light racism. But here's where I'm going with this. So the WNBA says they want to get paid more. They're saying
this entire episode exposed something bigger, how unprepared certain WNBA players were for the spotlight Caitlin Clark brought with her. For years, the league ran in a comfort zone, low criticism, low pressure, low stakes. Clark changed that. She brought the heat, and not everyone was ready for it. The racial framing of the original statement was especially problematic. She looked at 2 random fans cheering and assumed the worst racism. That's not activism, that's paranoia, that's problem seeking. And Stephen A wasn't about to let that kind of accusation float unchecked. Because when public figures throw out labels like racist without evidence, it doesn't fight racism, it cheapens it. It creates division, not progress. Griner casually labeling crowd support as light racism was exactly the kind of lazy rhetoric Stephen A has spent his whole career challenging. And her response? She didn't back down. She tripled down, hopped on social media, made a flurry of defensive posts, and in the process, validated every critique about her mindset. The worst part, the timing. Her meltdown happened during one of the most exciting surges in WNBA history. Viewership is up, revenue's climbing, and it's all happening thanks to Caitlin Clark's presence. Yet instead of celebrating that momentum, over here dragging the vibe, complaining about the same fanfare that's putting more money in her pocket than ever before.
Yep, I'm gonna say it. Caitlin Clark is the best basketball player in the world. She's the best basketball player that I have ever seen. She is the difference maker. She is the needle mover. She is the face of basketball right now. It's really hard not to recognize the difference that she makes on the Indiana Fever, a team that was obviously struggling with playmaking, struggling with pacing, struggling with the things that make us want to watch. And she steps into that court, and in the first quarter, she made 3 threes in 38 seconds.
Stephen A invoking the prison swap wasn't petty. It was surgical. It reminded everyone what real hardship looks like. And it made Griner's complaints sound even more petty in comparison, because if anyone should be embracing the spotlight and celebrating freedom, it's her. Brittney Griner's return to the WNBA should have been a celebration. Instead, it turned into a mess, largely because of her own actions. After everything the US went through to bring her back, including negotiating with a hostile foreign government, her public complaints about crowd noise at games felt not just ungrateful but flat out surreal, rather than expressing gratitude. She criticized the very environment that welcomed her back. It wasn't just out of touch, it screamed entitlement. And when Stephen A. Smith stepped in to address it, she didn't respond with reason or composure. She snapped. The emotional reaction revealed how fragile she really is when confronted with legitimate critique. Stephen A. didn't insult her. He didn't make it personal. He highlighted the facts. He questioned the logic behind her complaints and pointed out the disconnect. But instead of engaging thoughtfully, Griner got defensive and emotional, proving that she wasn't ready for the kind of spotlight she's under. When Stephen A. compared her situation to athletes in the NBA, NFL, NHL, and MLB, the contrast was undeniable. Those players deal with intense crowds and aggressive road atmospheres regularly, and no one's whining about it. But here was Griner, framing it like a personal attack. Her reaction wasn't just an overstep, it showed just how out of sync she was with professional sports culture. Then came the wave of response. Other commentators, former pros, and even current WNBA players started raising eyebrows. not attacking, but questioning her mindset. And as the criticism built, it became clear she wasn't ready to face that kind of pressure. Her meltdown exposed a pattern of playing victim instead of addressing valid concerns. Things got worse when she tried to bring race into it. That pivot pulled attention away from genuine, important conversations like the growth of the WNBA and turned the spotlight onto a narrative that didn't belong. Instead of uplifting the league's progress, she painted herself as targeted when in reality,
the Brittney Griner, because it was definitely a man, okay? A man was an Adam's apple, deep masculine voice.
the moment was about accountability. Stephen A's refusal to backtrack was powerful. He didn't cave or soften his stance, he doubled down. And every additional point he made her original comments sound even more toned up. His consistency forced Griner to face the fragility of her own argument. And what spoke volumes? The silence? Teammates, coaches, the broader WNBA community, most stayed quiet. Few defended her, especially when she made racial implications that didn't land. That lack of support said more than words ever could. They knew she'd crossed a line. This whole episode became a textbook case in the difference between constructive criticism and performative grievance. Stephen A raised real points. Griner manufactured outrage. Everyone watching could feel that contrast. Clear as day, the timing couldn't have been worse. The league is finally breaking into the mainstream. Attention is rising. Casual fans are tuning in, and Griner's comments threatened to derail that momentum. Instead of embracing fan energy, she called it a problem, exactly the kind of negativity that scares off support. Stephen A tapped into something deeper. 2. How public figures are held accountable in the digital age. Griner didn't whisper these thoughts in private. She broadcasted them, and when the reaction came, she cracked. She wasn't ready for the backlash, even though she invited it. He kept referencing the prison swap hand, for good reason. It underscored the staggering amount of national effort that went into her return. To then hear her complain about fan noise, it felt like a slap in the face. The contrast between international diplomacy and domestic pettiness was staggering. But rather than let the controversy fade, she fueled it. Post after post, reaction after reaction, she extended the cycle and dug herself deeper. What could have been a 24-hour story stretched into a days-long saga because she wouldn't let it go. Worst of all, she became the very stereotype critics often pin on modern athletes: overly sensitive, entitled, and unwilling to take accountability. Instead of owning the moment, she ran from it, blaming others and playing the victim card at every turn. Stephen A didn't need to insult her, he just laid the facts out plainly. And in doing so, he let her own words, her own defensiveness, and her own reactions become the strongest evidence against her. And this wasn't just about one athlete. It symbolized the broader tension within the WNBA between players who want the fame and those who don't want the heat that comes with it. For years, the league coasted under low expectations. But now, with stars like Caitlin Clark raising the bar, that's no longer an option. Clark, for her part, has handled the spotlight. With Grace Griner, not so much. Her response to criticism wasn't poise, it was panic. And that made the divide between them crystal clear. The irony: Griner created a way bigger issue than Stephen A ever could have. Had she stayed quiet or replied professionally, the story would have faded. But her reaction added fuel to the fire, and now, that prison rescue context might stick to her legacy forever. Stephen A cemented that narrative, not unfairly. But truthfully, her meltdown proved his point. She lacked the perspective, the humility, and the awareness that comes with elite professionalism. Watching someone finally challenge Griner without folding was cathartic. She tried to flip the script with emotional appeals and racial framing. But he didn't bite. He stayed focused, and it worked. Her meltdown confirmed everything he'd said. She didn't rise to the challenge. She wilted under the lights. Instead of leading, she complained. Instead of taking ownership, she pointed fingers. And when people look back, this moment might define her more than any basketball achievement. Not because of her talent, but because of how she handled criticism, or DIDN single quotes. TID. At the end of the day, Brittney Griner learned the hard way. If you try to play the victim with Stephen A Smith, it will blow up in your face. Her racial framing flopped. Her emotional spiral dragged out the drama, and the prison exchange reminder. Harsh but necessary. Smash that like button if you agree. Stephen A was 100% on the money, and subscribe for more straight-up accountability content.